Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have a brand new deck for you, but before that, just a quick reminder to please click like and subscribe if you enjoy my videos. We're well on our way to 1 million subscribers and every single click counts. And today's deck is going to be focused around the Meep. For 2 colorless and 1 black, it's a legendary creature alien 0/4 with ward, pay 3 life, and whenever the Meep attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX until end of turn, where X is the sacrificed creature's mana value. So this guy is just absolutely adorable, but there's a lot of evil lurking inside of him, and that's kind of reflected in his ability. It's really unique. I love this kind of build around that forces me to do kind of different things, and in this case what we're going to be looking to do is to play a largely token black deck, but also have a lot of cost reduction cards that have a very high mana value but can be played for fairly cheap. This means that despite being a mono black deck, it's going to play quite differently from normal mono black decks, which I hope you'll agree is a good thing. But I mean, the main reason for playing this guy is just that he's adorable. I mean, look at that little face and those big eyes. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started, and we're starting off with Abhorrent Overlord. This is a card that you may be familiar with if you played back during Theros. It's actually going to be very good in this deck because it cares about devotion to black, and obviously we're a mono black deck, and it has a high mana cost, plus it's going to make a large amount of flyers. That's obviously great because when we attack with the Meep, we can sacrifice him, for example, and make all of those flyers 7/7s, which should help us finish the game quickly. Ancient Stone Idol works really well because we should be able to play it fairly cheaply, but even if we can't, we are playing mono black, so we have a lot of ways to make a lot of mana. Avatar of Woe should almost always come down for 2 black mana, which means that it's a perfect kind of card to sacrifice to the Meep. As a quick aside, I love how the Meep's ability effectively has pseudo haste, so you can kind of play a creature and then sacrifice it the same turn that you play it. Ayora, First of Loch Thwain, is going to work very nicely with all the tokens we're making, and it's just a really good card in mono black in the first place. Bloodletter of Aklazotz is obviously going to be great in this deck because it's essentially going to double our damage output during our turn. Cannon Protect Scarab Swarm works really nicely because it provides a decent body to sacrifice, seeing as it's going to make everything 4/4, but it also comes with what are hopefully a lot of creature tokens attached. Do bear in mind that this only exiles artifacts and lands, so you will have to hope that you're playing against somebody with quite a bit of mill or that is playing fetch lands. Chittering Witch works very nicely because it's basically 4 bodies for 1. Cryptcast is going to make all of our swamps so good, and having Extort is actually really underrated. It can really help close games out. South Thief Voidwalker is just a good stuff mono black card. It works so well and can sneak through damage, so it's particularly good with our commander if we can make it into something huge. Demon of Deathscape is really powerful. We can pay 6 life and sacrifice 3 tokens to get this down very early. Once it's down, we can either attack with it or sacrifice it to the Meep to make all of our board huge. Dread Presence provides some nice value no matter what mode we're using. Card draw is nice, and being able to remove stuff and gain some life is also very good. Dreadfeast Demon works very well with our token sub-theme, and the copies that it makes retain their mana value, so they're good to sacrifice to the Meep. Ebon Death Dracoliech is a really solid card that can be sacrificed turn after turn after turn. Hendrik Saar Master Breeder is one of my favorite cards. It was my first mono black commander. It can make a lot of tokens, which obviously works very well with the Meep. Ghoul-Caller Gisa fits very well with both sides of what our deck is trying to do. Obviously it makes tokens, which is great, but it also works very nicely with a lot of our high mana value creatures, which tend to have high power. Gix Yawgmoth Praetor can draw us a lot of cards, seeing as we're making lots of small creatures that can sneak through damage. Gorix the Tombshell comes with a big discount as long as we can exile some creatures from our graveyard, and then later on we can get those creatures back as well. Brave Titan again fits both angles of what the deck is trying to do. It's a high power creature that makes tokens. Grey Merchant of Asphodel is an excellent finisher in any mono black deck, and it's going to drain our opponents for a lot. Hoarding Broodlord is great here. Convoke is a nice mechanic when we're playing tokens, which we obviously are. This also has a very high mana value, and we don't mind sacrificing it too much once it's done its thing. Krieg, Son of Yawgmoth is excellent here. It allows us to dump our hand very easily, has a high mana value that can be cheated, and is just generally a really strong card. Kukusho the Evening Star is a really good one to sacrifice to our commander, which will give us a lot of life. Lord Skitter Hunter Sewer King gives us constant graveyard hate, which is always useful, and then also we're going to make a token every turn. Malevolent Witch Kite is going to work well with all of the tokens we're making. We can trade them in to draw a bunch of cards if we need to. Marsh Mist Titan is a card that you're probably not used to seeing in Commander, but in this kind of deck, it comes down for very cheap and is good to sacrifice to our Commander. Metalwork Colossus should be coming down for fairly cheap as well, seeing as we are running quite a few artifacts. Mikaeus the Unhallowed is good in most decks that aren't very heavy on humans, and this deck isn't. It's really nice to be able to sacrifice our stuff and just get it back. Mere Battlesphere comes with a bunch of tokens attached, which is obviously great. Noosecraft Mob is a really solid card. People are going to play spells, and when they do, you're going to remove counters from this and make tokens. And then when it's only got 1 or 2 counters left, you can just sacrifice it to the Meep to buff all of your team. Ogre Slumlord is going to help us make some more tokens, and it's going to give all of our rats Death Touch, which is obviously very annoying. Spawn of Ulamog only works with non-token creatures we control, but it is yet another way to make tokens off our stuff dying. Pitiless Plunderer works very well with a lot of the stuff that the deck is doing. We're definitely fairly mana hungry, and we're going to have a lot of creatures dying, so this just fits very well. Shadow of Mortality is one of the coolest cards in the deck. This one costs 50 mana, and we're very unlikely to be able to play it until a bit further on in the game, unless we've taken quite a bit of life. But once we get to dump this, it's very easy to just sack it to the Meep and win the game. Solemn Simulacron is a good one to sack that helps us ramp. Threefold Thunderhawk is a new and improved version of Mere Battlesphere. It can make a ton of tokens if this stays alive for a turn or two. Torgar Famine Incarnate is very powerful because we can just sacrifice a bunch of tokens and get this down for very cheap. Then it's going to make one player lose a bunch of life, and if we immediately sacrifice it to attack with a bunch of tokens we have in play, we can sometimes just finish someone off on the spot. Triplicate Titan is a really great one to sacrifice. It's going to make all of our board 9/9s and create 3 tokens. And Underworld Hermit comes with a bunch of squirrels attached. That is both adorable and deadly, since the next turn you can just sacrifice this to the Meep and all those squirrels are going to be 6/6s. Moving on to instants, we have Feign Death, Malakir Rebirth, and Not Dead After All. These are all going to work very well with all of the sacrificing of big creatures that we're doing. For enchantments, we're playing Bitter Blossom, which is obviously great. Getting a creature with evasion every upkeep is very powerful in a deck that can buff them and make them very big. Black Market Connection serves to not only draw us cards, but also repeatedly make tokens. It does cost us a lot of life, but it's definitely worth it. And Phyrexian Arena is a way that we can stay ahead on cards. It's kind of slow, but if we drop it early, it can be good. Moving on to artifacts, we have Bontu's Monument, which is great with all of the creatures we're running. It's going to drain our opponents every time we drop a creature. Expedition Map is there to find the classic Urborg Cabal Coffers combo. Genesis Chamber is very good in this deck because, again, we're playing a lot of creatures, so this is going to give us a lot of tokens that are going to get very big with the Meep. Mimic Vat is good because we can sacrifice something big and imprint it onto the Mimic Vat, which is then going to allow us to do it over and over and sacrifice it to the Meep multiple times. Skull Clamp works well in a deck where we're playing this many tokens. It should help us draw a lot of cards. And Whip of Erebos is obviously very good. We're going to be losing life in a few different ways, and we do want to make sure that we stay healthy enough to be able to win the game. For Planeswalkers, we're running Liliana, Dreadhorde General. We do have a lot of ways to mess with our own creatures and have them die, so this is obviously going to be great. It also makes a token, which is something we definitely are interested in this deck. Moving on to lands, we have Cabal Coffers and Cabal Stronghold. These are both fairly similar, but Coffers is obviously better because it works with Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. However, early game Cabal Stronghold is a better card to draw because it can actually tap for colorless by itself. Other than that, we're running Bojuka Bog to deal with our opponent's graveyards, and we're also running Strip Mine to stop those problematic non-basic lands. So there you have it. That has been my The Meep deck tech. This guy is the absolute cutest, and I can't wait for my secret lair to arrive so that I can throw this together and beat people to death with this absolutely adorable little critter. But what do you think? Are there any cards you would have included? Any things you think I shouldn't have put in? Let me know in the comment section below. I read all comments and respond to all of them too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care.